All right, hello, welcome to the first Fusion Friday. Today, what we're going to do is we are just going to get used to designing things in Fusion again. We're going to start with some objects and just model those out in Fusion 360 and make sure that we just get a refresher on how to actually correctly model things. So we're going to start this week with just this shape right here. And this shape looks a little complex. However, we could actually create this in just 2 sketches. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go through the process together. But what I want you guys to try is I want you to try doing this model on your own first. If you get stuck or you have never used Fusion before and you would like a refresher, you can follow along with this. However, I would like you guys to try this on your own. So, to get started, what I would recommend doing is just getting the OneNote and Fusion both in full screen so that you can toggle between the two as you're modeling. So, what we want to do to start with this object is we actually want to start by looking at the side plane and only getting this bottom little portion in there. So what we'll do is in Fusion, we will start by clicking the Create Sketch, and this time we'll select our side plane right here. So now what we want to do is using the Line Sketch tool, we want to start by just sketching this little profile right here. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect just yet. We can come back in and we can add the dimensions that we need to. But we'll start by just kind of starting at the top, goes down, comes down at a slant, and then makes this funky looking little shape right here. Okay? So this isn't perfect to the design by any means, but we have a good frame of reference to start. So if we're looking at this picture here, we see that we have some dimensions here along our side. We have a 12 from this edge to this edge, an 18 from this edge to this corner, and 7 from this corner to this edge right here. So the first thing we actually want to do is we want to lock this corner to be in line with this edge. So to do that, what we could do is we could start with the construction line and make sure that you click in the bottom left portion to anchor the line. Now, you see we have a fully defined line here, but we're actually going to make this a construction line. So we'll click here on the line and then press the X key on our keyboard to turn it into a dotted line. But then what we could do is we could use the coincident constraint to lock this portion of our line. If we click on that dot in this line, we'll see that they snap together. Okay, so now no matter what dimension we put in, this line will always be snapped to our little reference line that we made. Now we could come back in and add our dimensions that we need. So we saw that this dimension from here to here was 12. We already have that in. This dimension from here to here was 18. And then from this dimension to this dimension, we can come back in and just make this 7. Now you see the angle adjusted, but our distance from this corner to this line stayed the same. So what we can do now is come over to our bottom portion of the line. So we can see that this entire length is 30, and then this little section of the L is just 10. So we'll make from here to here, we'll make that 30. And then that kind of messed up our shape a little bit. So what we'll actually do is before we do that, we will come back and actually delete this dimension. And we will just adjust this to make this dimension 20 to start. Now when we come back in and make this 30, it's a lot easier to reference that. So the last thing that we need to do is we need to give these lines here their correct spacing, because right now these look way off from the way they're supposed to. So first thing we would actually want to do is add a parallel constraint to these two lines. we could see visually that these two lines, since they have a dimension of length in between them, they are parallel. If these dimensions were at different angles, they would have an angle dimension there instead of a distance. So we could come in and add a parallel constraint to these two lines. And then we can come in and lastly just add a dimension from here to here, making sure that we get our dimension at that slight angle and make this 10. Now you see we've kind of got this little jut out, but that's okay, because what we can do is we can just draw an arbitrary line from here to this little corner to close off our shape. Okay, now we have a fully defined shape, and we can come in and actually use the trim tool up here and modify. There's a little trim. Now we have the exact shape for our thing fully dimensioned out. So we are actually good to do our first extrusion. So we will finish the sketch. And then what we're going to do is, if we look back at our drawing, we see that this whole thing gets extruded out 95 units. So we'll just go ahead and click on extrude, click on this little guy here, and we will extrude that out 95 units. So that's our first part of our object. However, now we have this second portion, and this portion looks a lot more confusing. However, we can actually get this all created in just one sketch. It'll just take a little patience, and we have to know where the right place is to start. If we look at this, what we can almost see is we can see a couple of circles and a rectangle. If we just envision that there's a circle here, a circle here, and a circle here, we can actually draw this in Fusion and just start with those simple shapes and then create these more rounded out corners and the holes later on. So that's exactly how we're going to start this. So I'm going to start in Fusion by creating a sketch, and I'm actually going to look at the back here and create my sketch right along this little surface right here. Okay? Again, I'm just going to start with a rough estimate of that shape. I'm not going to worry too much about getting the dimensions right, but I do actually want to start my rectangle from this bottom left corner and then just go up some amount. And we can actually figure out exactly how much we want to go up. So we want the base of our rectangle to be in line with this bottom of our circle here. So how we can do that is we can do a little bit of math, and we can figure out, okay, this entire thing is 160 units up. From the tippity top of the part all the way down to where we want to start our rectangle is 40 units. And we have defined that this little corner that we started our rectangle in is a total of 37 units up. So to figure out our height of the rectangle, we could just do 160 minus 40 minus 37. Okay, and if we do all that out, we will get 83. So we want to make a rectangle that goes 83 high, and it's in line with our bottom, so it'll be 95. So we'll do our rectangle. We'll go 83 units by 95 units. And the way that I did that is I typed one number, and then I pressed the tab key, and then I can alter that second dimension box. Okay, so now we've got our rectangle. We've got a good start. To get these circles in, we'll start by just drawing a couple of circles in at the corner, and then we'll try to get one dead center there. We see that each of these circles has a radius of 20, or a diameter of 40. So what we could do is we could just start with a circle, make sure that we get that tangent constraint there, and then same thing from here to there. Then we could come in, make these two 40. That one was lucky, and we just snapped right to it. This one we did not, so we can change the dimension to now be 40. And then what we want to do is we want to create a third circle in the dead center, right? And this one is slightly elevated above, but we see that it's a circle of radius 20, and that it's 40 millimeters from the top. So that rectangle that we drew, we just have to make sure that the bottom of our circle is in line or tangent with the top of our rectangle. So we'll start by doing just that. We'll start with a circle that's 40, and then we could come in and use our tangent constraint and make this circle tangent with that line. Now we have a circle that's tangent with the line. We just have to make sure that it's actually centered. So to do that, we would just have to divide 95 by 2. And Fusion can actually do that math for you if you don't feel like doing it. So you could just type 95 divided by 2. And then Fusion will automatically calculate that out to 47.5. Okay? Now that we have this rectangle with the 3 circles there, we're starting to see this all come together. We just need to get in our last little cutouts there. Now to do this, we'll create these by just having 2 circles and a rectangle surrounding it in the correct dimensions. Something that we could look at is if we see here this top circle, the center of this circle is actually in exact reference to the center of this circle that's a diameter of 40 that we just drew for all 3 of these. If we go to our Fusion model, we can create another circle, and all of these were a diameter of 15. We'll start with one circle that's a diameter of 15. We'll do 2, then we'll do 3. Okay, now what we can do is we can create a second circle that's directly in line with the first one, just slightly below it. And this one, if we look at this, this also has a diameter of 15. What we can do is we can add that 15. We'll add another circle. You could center the circle and then just kind of trace it down. And what Fusion will do is this blue line will automatically keep your mouse right in line with the center of the circle. So it's very convenient if you're trying to do something with multiple of the same dimensions. You can just keep everything in line with each other. Now we've got our circles that are 15, but they're not exactly in the right space. We could see if we look at this from the centers of each of these circles is 55 millimeters. So we'll come back in, add our dimension tool of 55 for all 3 of those circles. And again, they're still not fully defined. So what we'll have to make sure that we do is also give these the correct dimensions side to side. From the center of these 2 circles, it's 55, and assuming we did this correctly, that should automatically be what the dimension is 55, which it is, and then from this one to this one is 27.5. So the last thing we have to do is we just have to add one more dimension, just locking this to this edge here. So to find that, we would do 95 minus that 55 that we already have, and then whatever is left over, we would divide that by 2. So 95 minus 55 is 40, and then divide that by 2 is 20. So if I do it from this circle to this side, we see if I put in that dimension is 20, and even though we already spaced them out correctly, now Fusion knows they're locked in place, so we can see that everything is fully defined. And then the last thing we have to do is we just have to create some lines that are tangent to those 2 circles to close out this little cutout shape. So what we can do is we can grab our line tool and just create a couple of lines that are tangent with that circle. And if you do it correctly, what you can do is actually just create 2 tangent lines. If you see this little symbol right where my mouse is now, that automatically adds that tangent constraint. So if you wait until that pops up before you click, then you'll be able to create the lines without doing the tangent constraint. However, if you miss, say you click there, but you want it to be tangent, that's okay. Just grab the tangent tool, click on each of the circles, and it will make these constrained. So now we see that we have this full, complete shape. Now we're pretty much there. we can actually go ahead and extrude this and then create our final thing. So we'll finish the sketch. We will then go over to our extrude tool, and we're going to have to select a couple of bodies here to make sure that we get everything that we want. So we want to leave these 3 holes cut out. However, we want everything else to be extruded. So we'll go ahead and we'll just click through all the things that we want to get extruded. Okay, everything here looks good. This is what we want. And we actually do also want this bottom rectangle too. This bottom rectangle is going to be important for the extrusion, and you'll see why. So if we look at our part, we see that this gets extruded in 10. And remember, we referenced it from this little corner right here. So we want to extrude going this way. To do that, we could just click our arrow and drag it 10 millimeters this way. Now, but you'll notice Fusion detects that there's geometry here already, so it automatically sets our operation to cut. So what we'll have to do is we'll manually come in and change our operation to join, and now we have this fully defined model. And once it loads, now we're looking pretty darn close to our final product. Okay, we're only missing one little feature, and that is these little curved edges right here. What we can do is we could come in and we could use the fillet tool in Fusion. Okay, that tool, if you go into your modify area, it's just right here, and it's super easy to use. You just click on the tool, click on the little vertice that you want to change, and then you can rotate the part around. Click on that other little vertice, and we see it's got a radius of 7. So all we have to do is in that little dialog box, just type 7, and that's it. That is how you create this part in Fusion 360.